You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, your weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your hosts, Steph and Tara, every Wednesday morning as they dive into a new witchy topic.
Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. This is Steph.
And this is Tara.
And you're listening to episode number 8, Traditional Witch Tools.
Yay!
We started talking about witch tools last week when we talked about casting a circle. We mentioned wands. So we wanted to cover the things today that are associated with witchcraft, because that's a question that a lot of beginners have is, what do I need? What do I need to go out and buy? And the answer is nothing.
Nothing ever. Okay.
It can seem like witchcraft is a very expensive practice, but it does not have to be. There's a lot of things like crystals that are really fun to collect, and that can start adding up, but nothing on this list is a necessity. So we wanted to get into that before we even start this list, is that absolutely nothing is required. The only thing that's required for witchcraft is yourself and your energy. You don't need anything else ever. So as we go through this list, which is in no order whatsoever, I kind of just wrote them down as I was thinking about them, and Tara doesn't know what order they're going in. I'm going to surprise her.
She didn't send me a list, you guys. She did not send me a list. She did not send me what I should be talking about this time, so I just want to throw that out there.
Tara's just winging it.
It's
so as I go through the list, I'll tell you a little bit about what each thing is, if it's not familiar, what you can use it for, and then Tara and I will each let you know if we have one or not.
Yep.
So the very first one is a wand, which I figured is a good place to start because we already talked about those. So yes. A wand is a tool used to direct energy. You really want to think of it as like an extension of your hand that you're holding it in. You do need to obviously know how to manipulate energy first, which we talked about a couple of podcasts ago. You have to know how to gather that energy and then manipulate it into your hand and then direct it into the wand. And then from the tip of the wand, direct it out into the world to do whatever it is that you want it to do.
Yes. It is yours to command.
And wands are, like Tara said last week, very good for beginners because they can really direct your attention and your focus and really allow you to see where you're sending something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, personally, I do not have a wand, and I have never had one.
I have had wands.
Yes, which is obviously you can go either way, and I do love wands. And I've seen like a lot of beautiful ones. You can have wands of all different kinds. They can definitely be made of wood. You can find a fallen branch and make your own. They can also be made of metals or crystals or basically anything. Some people tie crystals to the ends of them, to the tip, to make it, more focused, but
certain energies.
Yes, but you can find them all over the place. You can make them yourself. You really want to find one that, calls to you, but it's definitely not something that's required. And I have never bought one because I just personally have never found a use for one. I feel like it would be something that's just more like pretty decoration in my house than something that's useful.
So I actually have a few wands, and I've had a few wands over the years. I'm down to just one. I only use it really to decorate. I don't really use it to direct energy any longer. It's a beautiful metalwork wand with crystals embedded in it. And I bought it years and years ago and cleaned it and made it mine, and it was great. The best one I ever had was when I first got started. I bought a wand from a lady, and she actually sold me the wand, but then told me that I shouldn't use it because it wasn't tuned to me and I should make my own. And so she actually walked me through making my own wand. And that one I used when I first got started for a long, long time. I used that one for years. But I don't need the wand anymore to help me direct things. And like I said, I still have the one wand. I don't have the one I made or that original wooden one, but I still have the metal one. And like you said, it's a pretty decoration. But I don't need it to set my intention. So it's mostly just decorative at this point.
Fair enough. All right. The next one on the list is an athame or athame. It can be pronounced either way, which, you know, is something that's like a tangent sidebar. People seem to have a lot of issues if you pronounce something that they think is the wrong way. And that really bothers me, I have to say, because there are a lot of different ways to pronounce something, and something like, you get this a lot with Samhain, which is on October 31st, and it is spelled Samhain. So if you've seen that, a lot of people pronounce it Samhain because they've never heard, it's like originally an Irish Gaelic word, Samhain. However, it's a very ancient word. We don't actually know that it's supposed, we think it's pronounced Samhain, but we don't actually know that. And it doesn't matter how you pronounce it. Like, it matters what your intention is. And if you're a solo practitioner who got into witchcraft through reading about it, and you've only ever read that word and had never heard anybody pronounce it, you're going to pronounce it the way that you read it in your head. It's like the same as the people who read the Harry Potter books as a kid and were in the US and had never come across the name Hermione before.
Yes.
You likely did not pronounce it that way in your head. And then when you saw the movies, you were like, holy crap, that's totally different than what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. So I don't like people who pick on you if you pronounce the word differently than them. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just different than they think it should be. And they say, oh, like, you're not a real witch. Like, you don't even know how to pronounce this word. Like, give me a break. It's like the rudest thing ever. It just makes me very angry.
So, and this is why me and Steph can be friends, because I get almost all of my knowledge from books. Also, I just have terrible pronunciation on words, even if I didn't learn them from a book. So I constantly pronounce things however I want. I'll make up sounds.
Which is absolutely fair. And I feel like witchcraft has become a lot more popular, but it didn't used to be. So if you didn't know any witches and you just started reading books, like the books don't have like a pronunciation key in them. You're just reading the words in your head and figuring it out. So, I mean, that was completely off topic.
I liked the sidebar.
There's a sidebar to the word athame. It is spelled athame is spelled Athame. So it could be athame or it could be athame.
I've always heard athame.
People pronounce it both ways, and there is not a problem with either way. So that's what it is. So if you're wondering what the heck an athame is, we should probably get into that. It looks like a dagger. So it is a ritual knife, but it's blunt. So it's used for energetic cutting, not actual cutting. And it's considered the counterpart of the wand, which is why I put it second on this list, because it can also be used for directing energy. And a lot of Wiccans will use a athame instead of a wand to cast their circle for different reasons. Exactly. And it is also used for cutting energy. So if you have some sort of spell work, like cord cutting or something like that, but also breaking a circle is something that you would use in athame for. So I personally also do not have one of these.
I have one and I use it.
For the same reasons that I don't have a wand, because I have never found a use for it. I've never directed energy through a wand, so I wouldn't have directed it through an athame either. And it would probably be something that would just be pretty decoration. So,
and I have one. I use it to direct energy during ceremonies and things, but I really have it because I don't use a wand anymore. So I use it for what I used to use a lot of the wand work in. Also, I just really like knives. So this one to me is a lot more useful and more applicable to my lifestyle. So I don't know. I've had it for years and years and years and I love it. But yeah, I use it for a lot of ritual work, spell work. I keep it out. It's pretty. I really like mine, but the reason I don't need a wand anymore is because a lot of the things that I used to do with a wand, I now do with my athame.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I don't need both.
knife on this list is called a bowline, and that is a curved knife with a white handle, and it's used for cutting herbs and stripping wood, basically sort of nature cutting.
Yes.
And you're not going to be surprised with this on the list, but I don't have one of those either because I am a minimalist, and not that I don't cut things in my practice, but I am fine with cutting things with knives I already own in the house, because I'm not going to go out and buy something that I already have a tool in my home that accomplishes the same thing. That's like the point of being a minimalist.
Yeah. Well, and I don't have one, even though I do a lot of kitchen work, because I already have the Athame and I don't need a second one. Like,
makes sense.
I also think there's nothing wrong with just using my regular kitchen knives, which I keep and use all the time anyway. But yeah. I know some witches that they won't do spell work in the kitchen without it. It's just a personal preference.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing on the list is the pentacle. This is originated in Wicca. It's much more important to Wiccans. It's used to represent the 5 elements, but it's definitely trickled over into witchcraft. So you see that imagery a lot, but it's absolutely not necessary to witchcraft. And pentacles, obviously, when I say that, I mean that 5-pointed symbol, but it can come in many forms. You can have a wooden one. You can just have an image of one, like a metal, some sort of jewelry reflecting it. It comes in all, I'm just talking about the symbol, but it comes in all forms.
I have rings, necklaces, earrings. I have clothing. I have a cutting board. I have a lot of these, but this is something that is integral to my practice, but also my religion. So that's why I have so many. It's like almost like a Christian having a cross random places in their house. I have pentacles all over. There's probably not a room. Well, I will say the guest bathroom might not have one, but other than that, I think there's one in every room in my house. And they're not.
That seems like an oversight you need to fix.
Right? I was like, they're not all obvious. Sometimes it's just, I make shapes with so for in the guest bedroom, I have candles on the headboard, and the candles are in that shape. It doesn't have to be the obvious star pointed up every time. It's just the 5 points, but I have them everywhere.
Yeah, and it's definitely much more of a Wiccan religious aspect of it. It's not that you can't use it if you're not a Wiccan. You absolutely can. But again, not something that I have or use in my practice. I can't think I have a lot of witchy sort of things, and I imagine that imagery might appear someplace in my tarot deck or oracle deck, but I can't think of a specific instance of just having a pentagram someplace. I don't think I do.
I was gonna say, I know I have some in my tarot deck. I know I have candle holders that have them. Like I said, it's just something that has meaning to me, and as you said, it's a lot more of the religious aspect to me than necessarily the witchcraft part. So that's why I have so many.
Well, using decks to segue, the next common witch tool, which I'm going to group them all together, is divination tools, because that's what all of these are used for. So we just talked about tarot decks and oracle decks. The other types of divination tools are pendulums, runes, and crystal balls. So you might see those all over the place. And those are used to, when we say divination, you're basically asking the universe what's coming.
Mm-hmm. Giving a warning.
Yes, getting a warning, telling the future, and not necessarily bad warning. You can, ask the cards if, a new career is coming into your life or a new love or something like that.
Or even just what should I prepare for coming next?
Yes, and I do not have runes or a crystal ball. I want a crystal ball though, really bad. I really want one. So reading a crystal ball, we have a whole segment coming up on divination tools, but real quick, reading a crystal ball is called scrying, and I really you just stare into the ball until you have pictures come to you.
Yeah.
And
so the universe gives you a glimpse.
Yeah, images, and you decipher what those images mean to you in your life. And they're pretty. Like, I'm just going with it. Crystal balls are so pretty. And I mean, they can be clear, but they can be cloudy. They could be made of quartz and things like that. But I really want one. I don't have one yet. I'm on the lookout because I do feel strongly about all of the things on this list that you need to connect with them. Like, your energy needs to work with it. And there have been times where I've gone into an occult shop and just picked up something like a crystal or a pendulum or something, and I can like feel that like we are not going to get along. Like, and you need tools that like work with you. So I have a tarot deck and an oracle deck and a pendulum, but I do not have I do not have runes or a crystal ball.
So I don't use divination very much at all, unless I'm with Steph, and then we always do something. But
I was going to say divination is more my thing. Like, I do that all the time, like literally daily.
Like literally every time I go see her, we do it. But I am interested in getting a new tarot deck. I have an older tarot deck that I bought, probably, I'm not going to talk about how long ago. And it doesn't work for me. It's one of those things where I picked it up because I wanted it, not knowing that I needed it to work with me, and it doesn't. It just, we don't get along. And so I would like to get one of those. I do not scry. I had runes at one point, and I'm just not into the divination. I'm not going to lie. I managed to hurt myself on the runes. Like, it's not healthy. So I don't
think that particularly surprises me.
Right? I was like, it's really bad. Also, Bo is currently digging a hole for his bone, so you might hear him in the background.
Little jingle jangle.
Right? He's running around with a bone because I'm not paying attention.
Okay's about to bark at something out the window. I'm trying to stop her.
Excellent. Dog
Life
action.
of dog moms.
Hey, but this doesn't need divination. We did warn you in the first episode. Dogs happen.
Yes, it is very true. Okay, moving on from divination tools. Next thing on the list, which is actually the subject of next week's podcast, so I'm going to try to keep this to a minimum, but that is Book of Shadows or a grimoire.
Yes.
And these, we will get into next week, the differences between the two, because they are different.
They are.
But at the end of the day, they're both basically journals of witchcraft and your practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about them next week. Don't want to get into it too much now because there are more things on this list and we don't want to keep you too long. So I do have one. Yes.
I have one, and I've had one for many years. I actually have multiple ones because when I fill one up, I don't throw it away. I just get a new one and start filling that up. So I keep them on a bookshelf.
Yeah. We will definitely launch all into that.
Yes, I was like, there's lots more to talk about there, but we don't want to overshadow.
Yeah, we will
overshadowing next week.
Yes. Next thing on the list is something that's very common in terms of depictions of witches, and that's a cauldron.
Yes.
And that's actually a witch tool. It's used in practice, even with modern witches. It's often used for burning things like incense, but also petitions or offerings.
Yep.
We literally were just talking about this before we started recording. And I don't have a cauldron in the traditional sense because, again, as a minimalist, I feel like you can use things that you already have, and I can use other things around my house, like a bowl or a pot, to act as a cauldron. I don't need an actual like dedicated cauldron.
Whereas I have one and I love it and I use it every day. That's why we were talking about it right before this, because I literally use it every day. I highly recommend. Yeah, but I have one. I love it. That's all I got on that. I was like, I love it.
And I would say again, cauldrons are something that are used a lot in Wiccan traditions, just because they are very representative of the fire element.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I use mine for.
Yeah. Which brings me into the next one on my list is a chalice, which is at the opposite end and represents the water element. So those are kind of two that go together that are more seen in the Wiccan practice, which you've seen a chalice, you know what a chalice is, and it's used to hold water during ceremonies. So those two things are much more important to Wiccans than a secular witch. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't have a chalice either.
I had a chalice and I managed to break it. I need a new chalice. But it holds more than water. If you have an altar, a lot of times it holds water on the altar, but during religious ceremonies, a lot of times it'll hold, like, we'll talk more about this during coming up episodes, but like if you make your own cider, that's generally what you would serve it in, is your own chalice that's already been cleansed and purified and everything. Make your own wine, that kind of thing. So I personally have used mine during religious ceremonies or Sabbats. That may not be religious for you. That because that's when I serve. I always have everyone drink out of that, kind of to share the community. Anyway. But yes, if it's on an altar, it's with water.
Which brings us to two more things. So incense is another common witch tool that tons of people go out and buy, because that is something that you can burn in your cauldron. You can get an incense holder, and a lot of the different scents we've talked about. A holiday, like we talked about in bulk, and the different scents and trees and things that are and plants that are associated with that holiday. So a lot of people will buy incense with those particular herbs or flowers in it, rather than going to collect those things and using them in a different way. People will burn the incense of that holiday. So incense is very common, and there's like a ton of different ways that you can use it. So it's very prevalent, but I would say that's like one of the things that when people start practicing witchcraft, they're like, oh, I need to go buy incense. I need incense all over the place.
You don't.
You definitely don't. And that's one of the reasons we were talking about it before we started recording, is because I can't do incense. There's something in it, in every single scent of it, that bothers me. I don't know what it is, but it makes me sick every time. So I can't handle incense at all.
Yeah. And I love incense. I burn it in every room of my house, at least weekly, just because I like a lot of things about it. And I have specially handmade incense for that, but I burn it in my cauldron. And then I have a small cauldron that I can just move around room to room. So it works really nicely for me.
And speaking of the cauldron and chalice, we just quickly mentioned another traditional witch tool is the altar. And we talked about this in bulk, that for the Sabbats, it's very common to decorate the altar with like the changing of the seasons. And I already mentioned that I don't have one. I don't have a dedicated space for that. I just feel like, again, as a minimalist, it just like doesn't fit my life. I don't know, worried that the dog is going to get into it. I like to simplify my life, and we go all out for Halloween, like decorating, but as far as like other holidays or seasons, I don't change up things in my house, because I like to be simple, and that just feels like adding something to my task list. And I know that if I had a dedicated altar set up, that changing it out for the different Sabbats would be something I would add to my task list, and it would become more of a burden than something fun that it's supposed to be like celebratory. I wouldn't see it that way anymore, because that's just my personality. So I don't have one. I'm skipping that altogether.
I don't have one currently, but it's because in my space, there's pretty much no place that my dog can't go. And so I'm looking to try and find a dedicated space for an altar, but I currently don't have one because,
Fair enough.
That's literally what it is. He eats anything he can get his little mouth around, so we don't currently have an altar in my place.
The next three on the list I can kind of group together and get through in quick succession, because they are kind of similar as far as usage, and that is essential oils, herbs, and crystals. And crystals at the top of that list. Like, they're just so fun and pretty to collect. So I think that's why beginner witches are like, ooh, let's buy all the crystals. And I don't blame you at all. Like, I love them too. They're so sparkly. They come in pretty colors. I love them too. I especially love that, like, you get like small pieces of them so they don't take up a lot so
I was going to say, she says that like she doesn't have crystals. I've been to her place. She has the crystal.
I have that. So I feel you. I feel you on this.
This is the one thing that Steph's like, oh, I do need these.
I do need them, because they're just so small. So I can like stick them all in the little like cubby, and they all fit in there together, and they're not like taking up all this space. So I love crystals. But yes, and herbs, Tara and I both use, because we are hearth witches. We do a lot in like the home and the kitchen. So herbs are very useful for that.
Yes.
As are oils. Oils can obviously be used in the kitchen, but oils can also be used when you're using a cauldron or a chalice or candles. They can just be used for aromatherapy. So if you don't want to burn incense and you instead want to have an essential oil diffuser on your altar and burn the scents of the season, you can do that too. So those are three things that are kind of all grouped together because they each have like their own properties and their own energies that they're associated with.
Yes.
And you would use them in your workings in the same way to magnify those different energies, those different intentions. And I have and use all three of those. Crystals most of all, but yes, all three of them. Oils, crystals, and herbs I use.
If you have not been able to determine that Steph and I are literally the same person except exact opposites, I use everything except crystals. Which is like cracks me out that this is the one thing that Steph's like, yes, I need these in my house. And I was like, get these out.
I love them. But yes, obviously you don't need any of those things because you can direct your energy and your attention without any of those things. Those things are just tools and they can make it easier. They can give you something to visualize, something to put your energy into that you can carry around with you, but absolutely not necessary.
But having said that, they're not necessary, but if you would like to get them, if you find them useful, I highly encourage you go out and find one that speaks to you, because if you find the right tool, it can just change your entire practice. I love my athame. I've been using it for decades. Like, it's very personal to me. I love it. But Steph doesn't have one, doesn't need one. So it's very personal, but the tools can help also. You just don't need them.
You just don't need them. But if you want to go out and try any of these things, just head into a store and see what calls to you.
Yeah. Don't go get something that says beginner kit and be like, oh, I need all these things. That's not true. That one's wrong.
We're down to the last three on the list. So the third to last is candles.
Yay, candles.
Oh, candles.
So this is the one thing Steph and I both agree on. All the candles.
We both agree on candles. We are going to have a future episode dedicated just to candle magic. Don't you worry, because there's a lot that can be done with candles. Because you can use them. The different colors represent different things, so you can use them on your altar, set intentions with them, and then like burn them down systematically. You can also do candle readings in the form of doing flame readings. You can also do wax readings. They're a very easy tool to direct your energy into and be so useful. So we are going to have a whole episode on that. But yes, we both have and use and love candles.
Yes, that's the one thing. I was like, wait,
I agree.
Almost everything except fire.
And the last two on the list are definitely two associated with witch imagery. And the first is a cloak.
Yes.
And the second is a besom, which is also known as a broom.
Yep.
So those two things are always associated with witches, cloaks and brooms. Yes. Cloaks are still used. They are found more in ceremonial magic and religious ceremonies because they're often used with what is called skyclad rituals.
Yep.
So being skyclad is being naked.
Yep.
So a lot of religious ceremonies do, and I think a lot of witchcraft lore like comes from this, is like being out in the moonlight and actually being naked and one with nature and all of that. So a lot of witches will wear a cloak over themselves to like get to and from this ceremony site that you need to be sky clad for. So that is what cloaks are used for.
And I have one.
Besoms have a lot of uses, but they are not for riding. Like that is, you can't fly. We went over this in beginner misconceptions. That's just there is reasoning behind why, like where that myth comes from. If you're interested in that, you can look it up. But no, you can't fly, but they are useful for a lot of other things. One that we are going to have a future episode on is using them for doing a home cleansing.
Yes,
because Yeah, as hearth witches, we like cleansing the home and getting like negative spirits out of your home. That's like what it can be used for. You don't use it for cleaning. The bristles don't actually hit the ground, but you make like that sweeping motion.
Yes.
That is like what they are traditionally used for. And besoms can be handmade. You can go out and find twigs and make it into a broom shape. You can also purchase them. There are a lot of pretty ones out there, but they do look a little more like natural and not so perfect as like a traditional broom you would see in somebody's cleaning closet.
Correct. Although you can keep it in your cleaning closet because that's where I keep mine.
You sure can. So I do not have a cloak, not something I have a use for, but I do have a besom.
I have both, and I use my cloak for the intended purpose. And then I also use it for Halloween costumes. So it's multifunctional.
That's true. I probably have something cloak-like in my Halloween costume bin, but yes, in the terms of witchcraft, I do not have a cloak. But here's the thing. John and I are planning a trip to Disney World and Universal Studios. Woo-hoo! And we are going to Harry Potter World. I love, and trust me, we are having a podcast episode about Harry Potter in real life because that's a thing. But like, I mean, not everything from Harry Potter is completely incorrect. They have like crystal balls. That's a real thing. Like, anyway.
I'm not making fun of you. I'm excited for your excitement.
I'm very excited. So if they sell wands and cloaks there, and if I find one I like, I am buying it. I'll tell you that right now. Like a child, I will be in line with all the other 7-year-olds buying a wand from Ollivanders. It's going to happen.
I would just like to say that I know of 0 people that have gone to that park and not gotten a wand, and I know more than a dozen people that have gone to that park. So you are not alone.
I know a lot of people do like to buy them. So we are going to see, but I think even if I did buy a wand and a cloak, I can't imagine that I'm going to end up using those things in my actual practice. Not that you can't, you absolutely could. Like those, they're still like a wand and a cloak, even if they've got like the Harry Potter stamp on them. You do you in your practice, okay? Whatever you want to do.
This is very true, but also for the cloak, I think it's a lot more part of the religious aspect than the witchcraft aspect. That is not definitive, but I have never used a cloak without a religious ceremony being tied to it.
Yeah, if you have a reason to use a cloak and you are a secular witch, please let us know. Yeah, we would like to know because I have no use for one. And obviously, as Tara said, it's just a religious thing. And that's always what I've associated with too, is more ceremonial magic, which I don't do.
And I do. So that's why, like, that's the only time I've used it. But
yeah. So if you've used it for another reason, please let us know. You can leave us a voicemail by listening to the end. It'll tell you how to do that. Or you can leave us a comment on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast. We would love to know the answer to that.
We really would. We're always learning.
We are. And that is all that I have for you on traditional witch tools and why you don't actually need any of them if you want to be a witch on a budget, which I am all for.
Or
you're a frugal minimalist witch. I like it.
I was going to say, or if you just don't want to.
Yeah, if you don't want to, that's perfectly fine too.
Do you, as we always preach, do you.
Do you. That's what I love about witchcraft.
Exactly.
That is all we have for you for this week, episode 8. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Witch Wednesdays with Steph and Tara. Love our content? Consider donating at anchor.fm/witch-wednesdays to help keep our podcast up and running. Please leave us a voicemail on that same site if you have any questions or comments, and follow us on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast.